There are days when the mirror stares back at us as if it were a stranger. Not because we've changed our haircut or because time has left its marks, but because there's something in us that feels dimmed, an absence we can't quite name. It's as if we're alive, yet inside, quietly disappearing. How many times has someone smiled at you today, and still, you felt empty? How many times has your body been present, but your soul absent? We live in a time where everything shines, but almost nothing truly illuminates. Social media sells us the illusion of presence, yet we've never been so absent. Conversations multiply, but the meaning of words evaporates. Behind every "how are you?" there's a soul trying to disguise an inner collapse. And the strangest thing is, no one needs to tell us to disappear. We do it ourselves, slowly fading through automatic routines, forced smiles, and the roles we wear to fit into places where we don't belong. Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." But what happens when the why dissolves? When the why keep going becomes just another question we avoid answering. The desire to disappear doesn't come suddenly, it accumulates. It's the result of years trying to be what others expected of us. It's the fatigue of someone who's tried to adapt to a world that values the sparkle but despises the self. It's the exhaustion of existing in a society that turns even pain into spectacle. And that's why this question, why do we want to disappear, isn't just philosophical. It's human. It's urgent. It's the silent scream of an entire generation that learned to smile while crumbling inside. There are people who disappear while still walking among us. They go to work, reply to messages, post photos, but their essence left long ago. They've become echoes of themselves, functional, polite, predictable, but without a spark. And the most disturbing part is that no one notices. Perhaps because society has grown accustomed to this kind of walking death, one that talks, moves, and keeps a schedule. At the office, the colleague who once dreamed of being a musician now fills out spreadsheets. The woman who loved to paint no longer touches color. She lives exhausted between chores and bills. The boy who wanted to change the world now just wants to sleep 5 more minutes. These disappearances don't make the news, but they happen every day. Schopenhauer said that life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. And maybe that's exactly where we start to fade, between suffering and emptiness. We spend our lives searching for something to ease the weight of existence. But most of what we find are distractions, notifications, goals, addictions disguised as routine. Deep down, we don't want to disappear from the world. We want to disappear from ourselves. We crave a pause from the inner noise, from the exhaustion that even sleep can't heal. We want to switch off thought, silence fear, disappear for a few hours from the burden of being someone. Some look for that in alcohol, some in fleeting loves, others hide in work until they forget they exist. But as Kierkegaard said, the worst form of despair is not knowing that one is in despair. And that's what happens to us. We disappear with a smile. Modern culture has turned escape into a virtue. Work nonstop, travel to forget, consume to feel alive. But all this haste is just a sophisticated way of avoiding the mirror. Nietzsche wrote that the human being is the only animal that needs meaning in order to endure life. And when that meaning is stolen, by the system, by routine, by the lack of real connection, the body remains, but the spirit withdraws. That's when we begin to vanish, not physically, but existentially. Think of the crowds in the streets, all walking fast, eyes down, headphones in. Thousands of absent presences. Thousands of selves trying to survive their own consciousness. Disappearing, then, is not an act of cowardice. It's a silent plea for rest. An unconscious wish for pause. To stop pretending, just for a moment, that everything makes sense. And maybe deep down, that wish is what still makes us human. Because those who want to disappear, in some way still feel. Still sense the weight. Still search, even without knowing it, for a reason to go on. There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It simply settles in quietly, like a fog that slowly covers everything. It's the pain of someone who no longer knows who they are, nor what they're searching for. Someone who inherited a ready-made existence, but without purpose. From an early age, we learn to obey before we understand, to follow the flow before asking where it leads. Childhood, which should be a land of curiosity and invention, becomes the first training ground for obedience. Be quiet. Do it right. Don't question. And that's how we begin to disappear. First at school, then at work, and finally within ourselves. Modern society created an illusion of freedom. We can choose what to wear, what to watch, what to consume, but not what to feel. Culture programs us to desire what everyone desires, fear what everyone fears, follow what everyone follows. The South Korean philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls this the tyranny of positivity. A world where suffering is forbidden and failure is shameful, where even sadness must have a filter to look beautiful. But suffering, when denied, rots inside us. And the result is this collective emptiness, an emotional desert disguised as a normal life. Nietzsche warned, "God is dead, and we have killed him." He wasn't speaking of religion, but of meaning. When humanity destroys the absolute, everything becomes relative, even the value of life itself. And without a higher value to guide us, all that remains are goals, money, status, recognition. It's the modern cult of performance, where exhaustion is a medal and the soul is disposable. Freud spoke of the discontent in civilization, the conflict between who we are and what the world demands we be. We live compressed between impulses and expectations, between desire and norm. And every time we repress something true, we lose a piece of who we are. Jung called this the shadow, the collection of everything we deny in ourselves. But when that shadow grows too large, it devours us. We don't disappear because we want to vanish, but because we can no longer bear the weight of the mask. It's common to hear someone say, "I don't know who I am anymore." But what's most frightening is that, most of the time, no one around notices that loss. We live surrounded, yet alone. Connected, yet invisible. Present, yet absent. Camus, in The Myth of Sisyphus, described the absurdity of life, pushing a stone up a mountain every day, knowing it will roll back down. Perhaps that's what we feel, the absurdity of continuing. Working, smiling, posting, repeating, all while meaning slips through our fingers. But the absurd is not the end, it's the beginning. Because, as Camus also wrote, the only truly serious philosophical question is whether life is worth living. And when we face that question, we stop disappearing and begin slowly to exist again, even if it hurts. The emptiness we've inherited isn't our fault, but the responsibility to transform it is. Disappearance isn't destiny, it's a symptom. And every symptom is a cry for healing. There is a moment when the emptiness begins to scream. Not in words, but in symptoms: anxiety, insomnia, exhaustion, apathy. The soul asks for meaning, and we, desperate, offer distractions. We live in the age of false cures. We've turned consumption into anesthesia and distraction into faith. We want to disappear from what we feel, so we hide behind screens, sounds, and lights. Technology, which was meant to bring us closer, has become the new disguise for loneliness. We scroll through feeds not out of curiosity, but out of fear of silence. Silence, today, is the most dangerous territory, because within it truth appears, and almost no one wants to face their own echo. Byung-Chul Han, in the Burnout Society, describes the era in which everyone exhausts themselves trying to be happy. We live in a world that has abolished the no and turned yes into an obligation. Be productive, be positive, be better, but no one says be human. Happiness has become a performance goal. We measure the value of a life by likes, followers, and visible achievements. It's the cult of appearance, an altar where the true self is sacrificed. And while we struggle to look alive, we die of exhaustion. Social media has become a false confessional, places where we pretend to be fulfilled to hide our despair. Image has replaced experience. Appearance has killed being. Nietzsche, in The Gay Science, warned, "We chase after happiness like a butterfly, and in the end, crush it in our hands." Modern man does exactly that. He turns pleasure into a commodity and love into an algorithm. But pleasure without meaning is just noise. And love without presence is nothing more than shared absence. Religions, which once offered refuge, now compete with the wellness industry. Some buy peace in the form of crystals. Some seek enlightenment in weekend retreats. Some pay dearly for silence. But peace is not a product, it is an inner construction. And no one builds anything while running away from themselves. The French philosopher Pascal once said, "All of humanity's problems stem from one thing: man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." Centuries have passed, yet the phrase remains intact. We are incapable of being with ourselves, and it is this incapacity that makes us disappear. Freud would explain this as the return of the repressed. Everything we deny in ourselves comes back, disguised, to haunt us. That's why we try to fill the void with what causes it: more consumption, more distraction, more noise. A cycle of escape disguised as search. And in this process, the human being fragments. We live in parts. The one we show, the one we hide, the one no one recognizes anymore. It's the price of trying to fill the infinite with the ephemeral. Camus said that the absurd man is the one who recognizes the void, and yet continues. Perhaps the first step toward existing again is to admit that none of these cures work, that disappearing is a symptom of a life that has lost its axis, and that it can only be restored when we stop running and finally begin to look. We have never been so close, and yet so alone. We can speak to someone on the other side of the planet in seconds, but we can hardly look into the eyes of the person beside us. It's the age of connection without contact, of presence without warmth. A time when words arrive, but meaning does not. Today's loneliness is not physical isolation. It's emotional desert. It's being surrounded and still invisible. It's being heard by many, but understood by none. It's the kind of loneliness that can't be solved with company, only with presence, and true presence is what we lack the most. The German philosopher Martin Buber said there are two kinds of relationships, I-it and I-thou. In I-it, the other is an object, a function, a utility. In I-thou, the other is an encounter, a shared life. But we live in times where almost everything has turned into I-it. Friendships of convenience, loves by algorithm, affection conditioned by performance. And little by little, the human being becomes just a cog in a system that pretends to be a society. Schopenhauer saw this as inevitable. Suffering is essential to life, and no one is truly capable of bearing another's burden. But is that really so? Perhaps the problem is not our inability to understand others, but our lack of interest in trying. In a world where everyone is fighting not to collapse, caring for someone has become an emotional luxury. Love, once a shelter, has become a transaction. Friendship, a silent contract of mutual usefulness. And empathy, a concept used in lectures but rarely lived. The South Korean philosopher Byung-Chul Han calls this the society of transparency, a world where everyone exposes themselves, but no one reveals themselves. The more we show, the less we are. And so arises the paradox. We stand naked before the world, yet remain completely unknown. Freud once said that loneliness is the price of civilization. But perhaps now we're paying interest on that debt. Progress has connected us through networks, but disconnected our souls. Touch has become suspicious, vulnerability has become weakness, and silence intolerable. The result is a humanity that talks endlessly, yet rarely listens. There's a kind of sadness that arises when we are not truly seen, not with the eyes, but with the heart. It's the sadness of being unheard, unloved, unfelt. That's the fertile ground for the desire to disappear. The moment when the absence of the other becomes the absence of oneself. Albert Camus wrote, "Don't walk behind me, I may not lead. Don't walk in front of me, I may not follow. Just walk beside me and be my friend." Perhaps the entire philosophy of existence comes down to that, walking side by side. But we've forgotten how. Loneliness is not the end, it is the mirror. It shows us how deeply we depend on the gaze that sees us to remember who we are. When no one recognizes us anymore, we lose the reference of our own existence. That's why sometimes disappearing is nothing more than the final act of someone who screamed for company and found silence.